Welcome back to the Dangerzone. I'm here with Frank Beifuss.
Hey, how's it going? Yep.
And we're out for another walk and talk out in one of my favorite places, Ute Valley Park. As you can see, there's a little rain coming down. If you're listening, you may be able to hear it. Let's stop and give them a listen.
Oh yeah, it's starting to come down now. Of course,
as soon as we start walking, it comes down. Luckily, I got some water-resistant equipment here, and we're going to keep rolling with it. I actually like the rain. How about you?
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. Especially, it's been hot as hell around here lately, and I've been just getting burnt up. So, taking a little break to splash around, it doesn't sound so bad.
So, Frank is a CCT. Give us a little background.
Okay, so the short strokes on it. CCT is a combat controller. We're part of Air Force Special Operations, and we're ground troops that support. Typically, will support other soft elements, and we'll act as their JTAC. So we're controlling and deconflicting fire support, as well as ISR platforms. Pretty much the main piece is to be a middleman, like a conduit of information. So I'm taking all the information I can get from the aircraft above the team, and I'm translating it down for the team leader so he knows what's going on the ground, or from the air perspective. And I'm doing that in reverse as well. So since I'm forward with the team, I'm taking all the ground information and distilling it to what's important to the aircraft to give them context.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because that is a big difference. What we see from here, I've been doing a lot of drone flying lately, which we're going to be doing here a little bit, and it is a big difference contextually. Like, everything just looks completely different from a ground's eye view to a bird's eye view.
Especially, and it's a check and balance list, right? Because the aircraft might see something we don't see, but we might also. I've had aircraft or pilots, lock onto something because they're really locked on, and they're like, "Hey, I see a suspicious activity going on here," but so it gets we get you spun up, but then you investigate it further and you talk to the other people on the ground. You find out, man, that's your local police or something like that doing something. So. They might see guys with weapons doing something suspicious, but really they're setting up a checkpoint for you. So it's check and balance.
And I'll tell you what, from being in gunfights where we needed air to get out of bad situations, having a CCT or a JTAC has been an absolute game changer. And actually, getting the right, permissions to drop and people that are friendly with supporting that, because I've had a British pilot that didn't was a conscious ejector. We had all the clearances, and she decided not to drop. And
and sometimes you run into that with a hesitant pilot, and sometimes they might be right too. So sometimes you're amped up because you're in the thick of it, and sometimes it's good to have that person who's just a little removed who can say, "Hey, hold on," but at the end of the day, it's typically the guys on the ground's lives at stake.
So real quick, I like pointing this out. We were just surrounded by neighborhoods and everything else, and now you hear the birds and everything.
It's pretty wild.
Is it? Yeah. It's not a huge national park or anything, but this is right in the middle of Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
You take a couple steps over a hill,
and you're just
in the wilderness.
It's wonderful. It's like being up in Boulder. That was pretty cool too, just going and hiking in those hills.
But
so I might catch some heat if I didn't also mention, but without sticking too long on stuff, combat control has another focus that's really how we originated.
That's what I was going to talk about.
Which is, doing a steer assault zone work.
Yeah.
Or assault zone reconnaissance work. So it's finding places to set up drop zones, or dirt runways, controlling the air traffic, and just kind of being the information center and the control center for austere operations.
Yeah.
So
basically being able to set up like a dirt airport in the middle of Africa somewhere and like be able to run planes in and out of it. Like,
yeah. And of course there's a bunch of other minutiae and facets to the job, things you can find yourself doing, but broad strokes, those are the two main focuses. You've got the survey and air traffic control piece in non-permissive or in austere environments, and then you have the JTAC piece, controlling and deconflicting fire support.
Yeah. So what's cool about CCTs is they're similar to SARCs, which we're throwing around a lot of acronyms now, for those of you who don't know, but Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman, and later Special Operations Independent Duty Corpsman is what I was, which was Special Operations Medic, and you're a CCT, which stands for, again, just a
combat controller.
Yeah. So
actually stands for Combat Control Team, is what it was. So
what's
CCT,
cool,
but we're mostly independent operators now.
What's cool about these two separate communities that have completely different jobs,
Yeah.
except the common thread of being a gunfighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is sort of that free agent status, like being there's SARCs who are actually attached to some SEAL teams now, and there's mainly they're with recon and raiders, but there is like when you fall under SOCOM, there's some room to end up doing other stuff. Like if somebody needs a body, you're a qualified soft medic.
Tap my shoe really quick.
So you could go
Like a child, I'm already. She's untied.
You could end up with some other units. And CCTs, you guys, I mean, that's your main time is being attached to people, right?
Yeah.
And of different, from all across the board.
Yeah, I've it's been a really fun ride. So for most of my pretty much all my combat deployments, I've either supported or been attached to just a plethora of different organizations, which can be really cool. Like Dan was saying, you're kind of a free agent. So the ups to that, you get to see how a bunch of different organizations operate. I've had to work with pretty much every SF group other than 10th and 20th.
Yeah.
Been attached to SEAL platoons and supported the 75th Rangers. Got to work with MARSOC. So I've got to see how a lot of people operate, which is really cool, to just kind of move around. And since you bring a specialty, you end up doing a whole bunch of different kinds of mission sets, just providing your expertise for your specialized skill.
Yeah.
Now, but there's always downs for the ups. So, and it's really cool, especially when you're new and young. You're like, oh, I get to work with this group of people or this group of people, whether they're U.S. SOF or Coalition SOF. Got to work with some Coalition SOF elements before. They're Australians or Canadians or whoever, and it's a really cool experience. But especially like on our deployments, our cycles don't necessarily match up with our counterpart cycles.
Oh, right.
So you end up, depending on the length of your deployment and you're moving around for need as well, you might end up on 3 different teams during a 6-month span.
That can be hard. Yeah.
It's definitely it's fun. I mean, you get to just keep meeting new people, making new friends, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
It can also suck if you're on a team of guys you really click with. You're like, oh, this is great. And then the next group, just personalities don't align.
Yeah.
And every single time, you pretty much have to prove yourself from ground zero. So you'll almost always have at least one guy who's just says fuck you for no reason, you know. They're usually the guy that nobody likes too.
Yeah.
And that's why they're fucking with you, because trying to
They're trying to elevate themselves, and
Yeah.
you know, they don't have any room with the team anymore, so
yeah,
you're the new guy that they can try and flex on or whatever.
exactly.
Dumb shit. But
So you run into that, and for the most part, I've been pretty lucky and had just really cool teams that were real open and like, hey, if you're willing to do work, we're willing to have like you're one of us now, you know.
yeah.
Which is awesome. It's a great experience.
Which I think speaks to a couple of things. And I have a lot of listeners who are thinking about joining the military, looking at doing special operations. They want to possibly be a SARC or a CCT or a PJ and stuff. And there's a lot that needs to be considered before you choose one of those routes, because a lot of them are so different. A lot of jobs within special operations are very different.
Yeah, and they can be highly specialized.
And if you're thinking about doing something like CCT or SARC or something like that, where you're going to be sort of bringing an extra individual skill set to a team that's like very vital and important, being able to be flexible and like be able to blend with whatever,
Yeah.
be able to jump into a team, like you said, having to change teams several times, being able to jump in and learn how to create rapport with people quickly, and like, you know, become part of the group quickly is a valid skill set to have, and not sort of the you know, what we see online a lot of. There's just this like sort of, I would say, fake bravado of like, well, I'm a badass just because I'm special operations, you know. Well, you still got to prove yourself every day. Like,
Yeah, and I think, you know, and when you talk about SOF or special operations, because like I don't know, I don't really view myself as like fucking Rambo, you know. I don't view myself as which because I'm not, you know. I'm just a dude who's learned this skill set and works at it, you know. But
dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
yeah, exactly who I am. But yeah, I think it was on my first deployment. An SF dude told me, like, he's like, hey, never think that you're better, stronger, smarter, faster than conventional soldiers, because
Yeah.
you're not, probably. You just have accepted a higher level of responsibility at an earlier phase in your career. Which is totally true, dude. It's totally true. And if you can kind of remember, like, you just stay humble, because the dudes that are like fucking walk around puffing their chest, super into themselves, and fucking, they're usually missing some key things, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
They're letting that get in the way of some of their critical decision-making processes. Yeah, and I think we've all those who've done the job have seen that type and know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think staying humble. That's knowing when and where to speak your mind. Like, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I kind of lived by while I was in was really, I was still found a way to stay true to myself, right? If I see something that's fucked up, I'm gonna voice my take on it, right?
Yeah.
But if the team decides, hey, fuck what Dan said, we're gonna do this anyways, hey, fuck yeah, let's do this together. Like, I didn't hold that against the team. I didn't like, it was just like, hey, I at least got my conviction out there, right?
Yeah, and sometimes
Like,
that's all you can do.
like, you know, for example, we're gonna go patrol over this area. Hey, well, guys, maybe we shouldn't do that because it's daylight. Maybe we shouldn't do that because it's IED to fuck. Like, can we figure out a different way to like affect this area? And, you know, then they'd be like, well, we're doing that anyways. So at that point, I think it's important to be able to shift gears and not just stay in your like rigid self and say, well, this is all fucked up. And then like, that's your mindset during the patrol, but being able to switch and saying, hey, let's make the fucking best of this. Like,
Yeah, let's make this happen somehow.
yeah, and let's fucking work together to come out through it. And here's another outlook.
I'm gonna rock a piss real quick, dude.
I'll get the camera going the other way. Oh man. Birds chirping. Wonder if the little insects or worms and stuff are starting to come up to the surface here. That little bit of rain. Definitely hear a lot of birds. We're gonna head over. I'm gonna try and get us out on that little castle deal right here. And we'll sit down and talk there. We're gonna try and head over to that, see that little rock outcropping?
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's a cool little spot to chill.
Sick.
So yeah, it's because a lot of people just think of like what it takes physically, like what are the physical requirements to get into this job or that job, and they're not thinking about the mindset it takes to push past a lot of the physical stuff, or one, just be good at the job once you're there. It's not just about making it there.
Yeah.
It's about being a proficient, just doing your best at what you want to do. And I think a lot of people, they're not thinking, oh, I might go to war. Like even people going into special operations, they're like, they have some weird conceived view of it, and it's like, you got to realize that this shit is not Call of Duty. It's fucking real as fuck, and some people are fucking getting killed, and on both sides.
Yeah,
and
on that, and I think this gets back. I was thinking about this a second ago. This gets back to your piece on humility. Because war's not always fast paced too.
No.
Sometimes it's super long and super boring, and it goes hand in hand with being humble, is not being complacent.
Oh yeah.
Because once you get
kills.
Yeah. Once you get just super comfortable with your routine and like, oh, I don't need to check this out, it's good. That's where you start setting yourself up for failure. And
I think we're even seeing in scientific studies now that just like being comfortable in life is bad for you. It's just generally like you should seek out.
It's how you stagnate.
Discomfort wherever you can find it. I just want to point this out. When I was mountain biking with my brother up here, when my family used to live in Colorado Springs, I ramped off this thing, and I totally frapped in.
You're just
right here, and it was a brutal wipeout, dude. It was so ugly jump. I came off in that. I didn't like have the whole concept of like keeping the front up, so I just like came over that, and it looked like, you know, it was the first jump I ever went over.
You're like, I'm gonna shred some gnar.
I convinced my father to buy a new mountain bike so I could ride it while I was out here. Like, but it was his, and I immediately broke it right here. But I think the more we can, I'm still trying to do that. I'm still seeking out discomfort in life, because I think that's what keeps it. We're finding all these things in the brain and the body, like all these processes like require stress. It's kind of like we have a forest fire down in Durango right now, and who would have thought, like that's part of the rebirthing process for a lot of like forestry stuff, is like it unlocks pine cones and other things so where a forest can like naturally regrow. Like fires is a part of it, but you know, us as humans, we're living comfort-based lives where we can't have forest fires like killing people and, you know, stuff, and so we try and fight it. And to a certain point it's a balance, right, of matching our level of comfort with the forest fire with the actual letting the natural process be. But I think it speaks to what you're talking about, is if you find yourself getting comfortable and complacent, you got to start evaluating. It's a good time to start evaluating where you are in life. Like, what do you need to do to sort of tweak that up for yourself.
Yeah, I think absolutely, man.
Like knowing when to say, hey, I've done these 2-3 deployments or whatever. I maybe need to go to instructor belly,
or
like,
do something,
or do something different because I'm going out on patrol and I'm just kind of fucking there, existing, you know.
It just becomes normal, you know. I think that the forest fire starting rebirth is it's very analogous of just I don't know. I think a good
analogous. That's a good word.
A good way to live your life, you know. Like sometimes you just have to start over.
Sometimes you just gotta burn it down.
You gotta burn it to the
start
ground. Over. Sometimes you gotta drive your Mazda Miata off a cliff.
Yeah,
like insurance.
And I think you're starting to touch on a little bit of the death and dying side of that, of getting like complacency kills. And we were just talking about on the ride over to the park a little bit about death and dying, and how a lot of people just aren't prepared for it, aren't talking about it, or there's just sort of a taboo. People are, obsessed with skull, like, how many different skull obsessions are out there. I mean, I have tattoos of skulls all over me, you know, and so there's this sort of like fascination with it, but I think when people are confronted with the reality of it, it's very surprising of the things that are involved in it.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast earlier, you can go back and watch it, I think it's number 10, with another medic, where we talk about our first patients we lost and sort of like the process we went through. We both went through very different processes because death affects everybody differently. And I think what's cool is you mentioned that we were talking about podcasts, and you're mentioning that a podcast that you listened to actually kind of helped sort of like put some of the pieces together that you already had. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I've had, I've got a lot of thoughts, or I had a lot of feelings on death and how I kind of viewed it, and how I viewed it in the context of life, in the sense that the brevity of life kind of makes it a little more special, right? And death is like a startling reminder of the brevity of our brevity here in this world. So, but I don't think I had a good way to explain that or solidify that into words.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Sam Harris's podcast, and he had a Frank something. I can't remember his last name right now. I'll have to look it up. But it was he's a guy who opened up a Buddhist hospice, the first Buddhist hospice in the U.S., and had just a lot of experience with death.
Buddhist hospice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's just to help people go through the dying process and help their families go through the dying process.
Yeah.
With some moniker of grace and dignity, and also just understanding, trying to help them go peacefully. And a lot of the points he brought up ended up helping me really put into words how I felt about death from the beginning, but how I had come to feel about death, which was very, very helpful. I listened to it right. First time I heard it, it was not long before my grandpa died of cancer. It was a couple months ago now. And so when I spoke at his funeral, I think I was able to actually put together something that, while brief, was impactful and meaningful from our family, who my grandpa's very Catholic, but a lot of our family is maybe only nominally religious, if religious at all. To include myself, I'm just, full-blown atheist. So hearing a lot of the same, like, we'll hear these scriptures or whatever, it doesn't really provide any solace.
Right.
But I'd say listening to that really helped me put into perspective my thoughts, which are generally death reminds us that we shouldn't just be comfortable, and sedentary and not exploring, not trying, not learning. You have to stay hungry for just life.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Which ties right back into the being comfortable deal.
Yeah.
Like, life is so finite. It is so short time when you look at the whole span of human history, especially. Which, I mean, we're finding out now that there's this researcher who says the Sphinx was made by an earlier civilization than the Egyptians by like 10,000 years. And it's seen by actual rain erosion on the Sphinx is like what he can see. He's a geologist, and you can see that basically the head is new. It used to be what he theorizes was like a full line. Like people would have been obsessed with the stars back then, and like Leo, the constellation, and everything. And that, so that's just interesting. Those kind of discoveries we're finding about in ancient history, and that people, apparently there was a big wipeout session from like floods, or they think it was like a solar flare that caused like all this flooding on the earth, all the ice, we're in like an ice age, and all the ice pulled back and all this stuff. And what I'm getting to is that if that is true about the Sphinx being 10,000 years older, Cleopatra is closer to the iPhone being made than the actual Sphinx.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
Which is kind of trippy.
Yeah.
But it just shows you that, like, just think of that span of time from Cleopatra to the iPhone, and our little piece in that is so finite.
Yeah.
Compared to the actual people that may have made this things 10,000 years before even the Egyptians were there. So, and the whole theory goes on to say that, like, basically people went into cave dwelling, or were already cave dwellers, and those were the survivors that basically started the next, like, civilization. So they'd become very advanced, and then were wiped out. Apparently there was like lightning storms from all the from the solar flare. It causes like crazy lightning storms. Apparently that would be like, this whole storm would just be the rain, every raindrop would be a lightning bolt. So it's just like completely covering areas with like just destroying everything. Anything above ground was just getting like completely burned up and wiped out if they didn't drown in the floods or anything else. So it pushed people like in cave living, and they basically had to restart.
That's pretty wild.
But
it is kind of interesting. Well, one, I'm gonna take a moment because this is an awesome view.
Yeah, you want to just soak it in a little bit?
Yeah, this is awesome out here, man.
Everybody a little piano. So what I like this park, we're in the middle of Colorado Springs right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it.
No, dude, it feels like we're in a park, like a big state park or national forest or something like that. You can still see houses and some buildings out in the distance, and there's that one commercial building or something over there. But
still, it's not.
But no, yeah, it's super. It's just cool,
To have this in your backyard, I think is nice.
Yeah, that's like what I like. That's what I like about a lot of the West, man. Is you just look around, there's like, oh, there's a mountain over there, or at least a bluff,
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Well, we can just sit here and chill and talk.
Word. I don't think. Oh, Steve.
Oh.
Oh, Steve wants to know if we're down for a movie at 9.
Okay.
Let me just see what he's doing up to.
A podcast with Steve, if y'all want to check that out. A walk and talk like this. Yeah, I did. Just breathing out here. Feels so good.
Yeah, dude.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about space exploration too.
Yeah, and I think it kind of gets into what we're talking about with just being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
And then just out here in nature. I think Because I like to geek out about space, and I'm no I'm no physicist or anything, but I found I took an astronomy course, but it was like the basics of the physics, astrophysics, like baseline stuff, but it was still just, man, it's just super fascinating to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, even at just a conceptual level, like not getting into the mathematics of everything, but I think it's super fascinating. So just the idea of like finding new things out there, and the cosmos is so huge that it just provides just this endless world for exploration.
Yeah.
But the Earth still has tons of stuff to explore.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, what's the ocean's only like 5% explored or something like that?
Especially even for your personal self, getting out and exploring areas you haven't been. There's tons.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're saying the oceans? Yeah, the oceans are like what we've only seen such a fractional part of it. We're still making discoveries of all kinds of creatures and stuff.
I was reading an article the other day about these marine biologists that have found this. They call it it's like the Great White Oasis or something like that, where these great white sharks are going way out into the ocean, way away from where they thought there'd be a lot of life or feeding, and they're studying their patterns, and they found this area out in the ocean that they totally thought was just dead, where they found out at the surface, the bottom, there's a massive amount of plant life. So then bottom up, they've got a full ecosystem. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just, and that's recent. That's a recent discovery.
Do they have pictures of this?
Probably could find it.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
I think it's something in
Great White.
I think it's Great White Oasis or something like that. But definitely very interesting. Just
no, they don't have anything coming up right away. But I won't spend too much time. I can always nerd out later.
Yeah. No, but
well, do you believe in Megalodon?
Of course, I believe in Megalodon. Funny you should ask.
Yeah, dude, the special they did on that during Shark Week.
Yeah.
that boat got ate up.
Yeah.
And those people that was pretty convincing.
There's a Megalodon movie coming out too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I saw
Why
the
wouldn't
preview.
it be real? I mean, there's giant squids.
Yeah.
If you blow up a miniature squid to a giant squid, think of a shark.
Yeah.
We used to have mammoths and shit.
Obviously, I can't say I 100% believe that Megalodon's real.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be super badass if Megalodon's out there.
And as far as the undiscovered world, the ocean is, I think it's tougher to say that, something doesn't exist in there.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you know?
To conclude,
you explored all the ocean? No.
Yeah, and
no
you're saying,
has.
the massive squids that are out there, why couldn't there be a shark that's, huge, infinitesimally small in the when you think about the size of the ocean.
Yeah.
Even
the size that they say it is isn't that crazy to think of. It's not but
it's not like there's a mega church-sized shark swimming around. It's like a school bus or two put together.
Dude, the way the sun's hitting on this. Oh shit!
Oh damn!
Did you just see that?
Yeah, that was wild.
All right, we got lightning now.
A little lightning, a little thunder.
Get ready to ride the lightning on the podcast here. I'm wondering if we're in a bad spot.
It doesn't seem too bad directly above us, but
I haven't heard it yet.
I'm no weatherman.
What is it within 5 miles? There we go. Dude,
that was a pretty long break between the lightning and the thunder, though.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's a ways away. But
I didn't count, but yeah, that's a good way as well.
This is a good time to get the drone struck by lightning.
You want to put the drone
The
up?
drone zone. Yeah, let's. Should we move down just a little bit so we're not on the precipices?
Yeah,
I don't
maybe.
know, it doesn't even matter.
I don't know. I mean, I assume, yeah, the higher up you are,
Yeah.
the more exposed you are to lightning.
Cool. We can walk down here and go down to the valley there.
Cool.
But anyways, so back to now that we're over Megalodon. So space exploration, I think, again, yes, there are still a lot of ways we can explore Earth right now. I think a lot of it's in the ocean. Depends on what kind of scale you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been doing a lot of sailing, and went up to Newport, Rhode Island during the Volvo Ocean Race up there. And that's an insane race. Those crossing the Southern Ocean and everything, they lost a dude this year. He's just gone. Yeah, and it's like, you'd think like, oh, they take so many. I got to tour some of their boats, which they're all made out of carbon fiber. It's like, I've never seen so much carbon fiber in my life. And they take all the safety precautions you could fucking imagine, And these boats are so fast, they actually can't sail them at the top speed they're able to do, just because it's like, it's not safe. Like, you just can't sail a boat that fast.
You can't get that radical.
'Cause you still have people like on it,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I think seeing that is like, yeah, there still is sort of a, a lot of people say there isn't a frontier in the world anymore. To a certain extent, I think on land, it's starting to get that way,
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of stuff in Africa.
Yeah, there's an area that is pretty much well left alone in Africa, and it's because there's a certain kind of fly there that if it bites you, you die. So
Yeah.
it's just inhospitable to humans,
That kind of deters me from wanting to go to Africa.
Well, I mean, Africa's a massive continent
after
that's
doing-
got some pretty incredible natural wonders.
After doing a tropical medicine course and realizing that like every bad disease that's on the planet is basically in Africa, and it's like 10 times worse. The bugs that deliver them are like 10 times bigger and worse, and you die. And like,
And then you die.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes when you're afraid of going to a place or something like holding you back a little bit, like maybe you learned too much or read, I think sometimes you can read too much about a place.
Yeah, I mean,
And I think,
you can get, especially if you look at a macro view of for example, you say Africa, that's a whole continent. And in individual areas, there's all kinds of things that can kill you. And you put that all together, you're like, oh my God, it's fucking, how does anyone survive?
Yeah.
But when you stretch it out over the massive continent that it is, so you realize, okay, well, if you're in this area, you got to worry about, bot flies or whatever. If you're in this area, you got to worry about sharks because you're in the, but it's not all jammed together. I think that can, put you at ease a bit.
you want to chill out right here next to this tree that was struck by lightning?
Oh, it's very ominous. Foreshadowing.
I was about to say, hey, let's sit down here. And then I've seen this tree that was like definitely
just
struck
crushed.
by lightning. And maybe we were better off on top. All right. So yeah, I think, but something so with all that being said, I think first off I wanted to say is, I think if you start having those sort of macro views like you're talking about, where you're like, oh, I shouldn't go to this area because I've learned too much about it. It's bad. I think that's almost a sign saying you should go to that area.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a way of saying, hey, you need to figure out for yourself. Go see it for yourself. I did a podcast with a buddy named Alex, and that was sort of his litmus test. He's traveled all over the world. It was basically like, if he felt bad about going somewhere, he went there. And then every time he was surprised at like how welcoming the people were, how
Yeah.
awesome of a time it was, and he had like these great experiences. So I've kind of adapted that from him. Is like, hey, you know, maybe I do need to go to Africa. That's what
Yeah.
the universe is telling me about me having reservations about it. You know.
I think one of the biggest things I've taken away from my travels, or going to war, and you have these, you know, ideas of how people are, you realize just how similar humans are. Like, yeah,
Yep.
you can look at these like huge differences in cultures and in, you know, just genetic differences. Like, I'm never gonna have to worry about getting sickle cell, but
you'll sunburn. Like,
but I'll sunburn, yeah, crazy easy.
For those of you not watching, he's a ginger.
And you know, you think, oh, there's these insurmountable cultural differences.
Yeah.
But in reality, the cultural differences are a pretty small part of your day-to-day existence. If you think
Yeah.
about it, what do you do day-to-day? You wake up,
Feed
you
yourself.
eat, you feed yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Take a
You
shit.
exist.
Yeah.
Most of your life is just spent existing, and that brings a lot of commonality. Like,
It's like we just saw Anthony Bourdain pass away, or apparently committed suicide, and that was something he pointed out. Is like food is just a common ground that you can. It's
yeah,
instant rapport with people. You're willing to eat their food. You're willing to like
If you're
connect with them.
if you're willing to eat their food, if you're willing to listen to their music, and just experience, you know, whatever kind of ritual they have, whatever it is, it's definitely, it's a trust building thing, you know. It's like, oh yeah, we're not really that different. That's one of my favorite things about traveling, is trying food all over the world. I mean, I've gotten real sick a few times.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah. Anthony Bourdain talked about that. I mean, that's his show, right? Or
Yeah.
like, travel around and try the food. He said there's times where, you know, he looked at the food and he knew it was old, or, you know, like very, very questionable whether it was a good idea. And he said those are the times he decided to go ahead and eat it were some of the most, like, greatest experiences followed him taking that step. And like, basically the experiences you'll have outweigh any amount of diarrhea or like repercussions, like, you know, that you'll have from it.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah, absolutely. Food's also interesting because there's usually a lot of history behind it too. I mean, the best food I think I've ever had. I mean, I've eaten. It's just, food's not always comparable. It's like music sometimes, where, you know, Italian food and French food, both awesome, but they're different, you know. And you can't necessarily say one's better than the other. But I think the most I've ever enjoyed trying new food and had the most kind of, I wouldn't say profound experience, but the most I've been able to experience at one time of just something different that I'm used to was in Peru.
oh wow.
Yeah, and you know, I was in Peru a few times, but just for a flash in the pan. It comes a time, like, usually just one night in Lima, and the hospitality was incredible. A lot of these places I went, but the food was just out of this world. And so I found out Peru is actually supposed to be, like, I think it's they say it's number 2 behind Italy as far as food countries go.
Yeah.
But I thought it was
number 2 behind Italy.
Yeah.
As like far as like good food.
As far as, yeah, worldwide.
Check out this little thing before you know, the pot legalization in Colorado. This is what you had to do. Weed here. A little stash spot.
Very surreptitious, very sneaky.
Yeah, those days are over for Colorado.
No one will ever know we hide our weed here.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and I like Peruvian food.
It's incredible.
The times I've had it. I haven't been to Peru.
And there's a lot of history behind Peruvian food. which is kind of interesting to think about because Peru is very culturally diverse, like the U.S. is.
Yeah.
Where the U.S., has a history of segregating, whether systemically or naturally. It's a much bigger country. People migrate to certain areas, and then in those areas, in the U.S. for a long time, people kind of kept to themselves.
Right. So like Southern food, or
Yeah.
like, and then yeah.
But in Peru, there's a lot more fusion that happened early on. Peru started out, there's the natives, which had incredible access to different ingredients and spices and stuff. And the Spaniards came in and unfortunately wiped out a lot of the natives.
Yep.
But they brought, as far as the food history goes, they brought their Spanish cuisine with them. And then later, it became more of a Creole style as they brought in African slaves, right?
Oh, wow.
But once Peru emancipated their slaves, as many as other American countries they wanted cheap labor. So there's a lot of East Asian immigrants from Thailand and China that came and to do work.
Yeah.
And they brought, Thai food is very complex by itself. Plus, the touch of Chinese food, or touch of Chinese flavors, mixed with the Creole, and then with all the natural ingredients that Peru has, like it's the birthplace of, I think, asparagus.
Wow.
And, tomatoes, possibly. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that's original to Peru that we eat in everyday food now. And then the Shogun Wars popped up in Japan, and that brought a whole wave of Japanese immigrants to Peru.
Holy shit! I didn't know any of this.
And it's just all kind of bunched together, right? So it's a much denser country, but it also has coast, it has mountains, it has pastures, it has jungle. So it has all these areas to get ingredients, and all these people that have become sort of homogenous in themselves.
Yeah.
They become Peruvian as opposed to, not that there still isn't, diversity in Peru, but it's much more mixed than, say, the U.S. or Canada or, most other American countries. So with that, their food became mixed, and that's where you get awesome things like ceviche. It's originally Peruvian. It's just, and then they have a, very food-oriented culture, right? Or very hospitality-oriented, similar to Italy, I remember we flew into Lima, and we got in kind of late, and we're just looking for anywhere to eat, right? We get to the hotel, we're looking for anywhere to eat. We go out, someone in the hotel gives us a recommendation. We get there, and the bouncer's not really having it.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, we're closing. And we're like, okay, well, sorry, we'll head out. Well, the host or the maitre d' or whatever saw us and ushered us in. He's like, oh no, come on in here.
No,
and we're like, wow. They sat us, we're like the only customers in there, so it was a pretty cool experience. And we're like, well, we don't want to make a big deal. Like, just, if you already have something, stuff that's made, leftover soup or whatever, we'll take anything. We're not trying to make, we're not trying to storm in at the 11th hour and make a big deal out of it. But they're like, no. It's like, well, is this you just got to Peru? And they're like, yeah. You just got to Lima? It's like, yeah. And it's your first time? It's all of our first time. Yeah, be like, oh, well, then you got to try everything. And it was an awesome restaurant. They ended up making all kinds of shit, and we shared it family style. It was probably, I think to date, the best meal I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. And, you feel kind of bad because, the whole wait staff stayed behind. And we're like, we're good. But there's, just constantly, do you want something? Here, try this, try this.
Yeah. That to me is human, though. Sharing experience, right?
Yeah.
Sitting down and podcasting, talking about life, talking about different experiences and sharing it with each other. And kudos to them for doing that. And seems like it's a part of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, if we can just find more ways to integrate that into our lives, just being hospitable of people and not so divided and putting up walls where they don't necessarily need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Being willing to talk to people.
Yeah.
Instead of just quick judging and
I think one thing that puts it in perspective for me is I try to do the extreme case of how could I possibly get along with an enemy,
Yeah.
And when I think about it, the difference between me and say a member of the Taliban is like, obviously I'm willing to go to war with them and fight or die or kill them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I realize that the difference between us is probably like 3, maybe 5%.
Yeah.
Because you think about it,
we're much better war fighters, but
but I'm saying,
but at the same time,
when it comes down to it, if we were sitting across at a dinner table and we didn't really talk, like, there's probably about 95% of the conversations we could have would not cause any hostility.
I agree. That's why I started wearing my Thor's hammer in country, is for that exact reason you're talking about. And I think it was a respect for my enemy deal. It was reading about the ancient Norse culture, and when they'd fight each other, even, you know, you'd be wearing a Thor's hammer on your chainmail, I'd be wearing one on mine. And if I killed you and you died a good death, I would take your Thor's hammer off your chainmail, put it on mine, so when we met in Valhalla, you would see it. And we'd recognize each other because of that. You'd be like, hey, that's my Thor's hammer. And we'd be able to share drinks and, like, party together, basically, in, like, the afterlife. And to me, that was such a cool mindset to have when war is still much of a part of the human existence.
Yeah.
And if you can find any little sliver of light in there where you can have a mutual respect for your enemy and understand them, I think is key to just your mentality of being able to deal with it afterwards. The questions of why were we there, this and that, like, it doesn't matter. The fact is, we went to war with each other, and some of those guys met us on the battlefield and they didn't make it off, and some of our guys didn't. And like you said, if I was born in Afghanistan, I'd probably be right there fighting.
Yeah, you'd be. And also, you got to think, like, for a lot of their fighters, and a lot of them aren't Afghans either. You know, the Taliban, they're foreign, but they're there. The majority of them are there for money.
Yeah.
Because, you know, farming ain't working out, and the government's not paying on time. You know, so you try to be a government soldier, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're like, well, I have this skill set. I guess I'm gonna go where the money is. Yeah, so a lot of it is it's similar motivators. Now, obviously, like, I find that 5%, the 10% of their ideology egregious enough that I'm very willing to fight it. You know? You know, the fundamentalism part. You know, I think, obviously women should be able to go to school. You know, there's a number of things that are just hard lines in the sand for me.
But the bare bones of them showing up to fight me. Like I said, I do think we are the best war fighters on the planet. Do we fight war the best? A lot of that comes down to politics and strategy. So I think we do have the best fighters. Now, do we always utilize our fighters the best? No. But for them to be brave enough to meet us on the battlefield, I think is worthy of respect. You know? And if you don't respect your enemy, it's a quick way to get fucked up by them if you don't understand them.
It's
if you don't understand their moves.
Their motives, their capabilities, you know, the things that they're good at, their ingenuity.
Yeah.
If you don't respect it, then exactly.
And so now, a lot of people, you know, see my Thor's hammer and they think it's a religious thing. It's really not. It's more of a, like, sort of life guiding principle of respecting others. And then now, you know, I'm ready to fight at any moment, but I'm retired and I'm hosting a podcast. Like, hopefully I'm not in a war situation right now, but it's a reminder of the same tenacity I took into battle to, like, face my enemy is how I need to go at life, like we were talking about earlier. Is just because I'm retired and out of the military now, it doesn't mean my life's over and I just need to relax and go talk about the good old days.
It's perfect time to find a new thing.
Yeah.
You know, a new challenge.
Yeah. And so that's why I wear it, and it's a constant reminder of that. And mine happens to be a fire starter. And I believe that every man should have the ability to make fire wherever he goes. And
I'm just hot enough.
Well, you could figure it out. You could get some sticks and stuff and everything. But
start smacking things together until it happens.
But it's also like a symbolism of me carrying my fire with me, like the fire in my heart, not to let it get extinguished or always be able to light it back up. So.
That's cool. I think it's good to have little reminders. You know, I've never been a very sentimental person, I don't think, but having, like, little reminders. when you're dragging your feet and you have your head down and you're tired and you're not motivated, you're in a bad headspace, to have something to be like, oh yeah, whether it's a tattoo or a medal or medallion or whatever it is, whatever your little thing is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bracelet. It could be anything. You'd
Yeah.
be like, oh, okay, I need to stop being a bitch and just pick my head up.
Yeah, well, it's easy to get inside your own head, and to forget some of those things.
Yeah.
Like when I'm having a fucking bad migraine and I feel like, I'm having trouble walking and shit, like it's helpful to remember that man I was in combat and that I did all those things for the right reasons that ended me up here with the situation where I can't walk very well when I'm having a migraine, and it's okay, and I can still be more badass than that dude who brought me here, to this point. Like, I can still be better than that man.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it is whatever your way of little reminders or getting out of your own head, like ways you can find that inner strength in yourself is important. But dude, I want to show you this natural bridge.
Oh, dude, let's go.
Before we wrap
we gotta get moving.
Yeah,
we gotta meet Steve. I shouldn't have done squats today, dude. I was like, what do I want to do today? I'll do back and front squats for the first time in weeks.
Dude, we'll have to jump more into space exploration on the next podcast, because we didn't even reach on it, but I think it is the next frontier, the wide open frontier is space.
Well, yeah.
And with overpopulation issues and stuff like that, I really think we do need to come together and start figuring out how to explore off this planet. So this is a little
natural bridge.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's cool about space exploration for me is the Greeks, they believed the gods were in Olympus.
Yeah.
Right? Once you can climb Olympus and you see there's no gods there, you move on. That faith dies,
Right.
And
once we get out there.
If those are the heavens, once you're out there, it's I think you should always try to kill your gods.
Yeah. I can't remember who, somebody was talking and they were referred to heaven and they pointed up. Yeah. And I'm like, up?
Why
is not
it's not a real thing. The earth isn't flat. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
And it just clued me into what you're talking about. Is Mount Olympus was this insurmountable spot where obviously we haven't been able to be there, so that's where the gods are. Up. I've been up in a plane. I jumped out of it. I didn't see any heaven or God up there. I mean,
there's no sky grandpa up there.
We've sent satellites to Mars and shit. We've been past up.
Yeah.
We've been up and around.
Up and around. And
yeah,
over there.
Way
over there.
I think it's not a knock on them. I mean, some people just aren't, I guess that in tune to it, or that outside of their box, and I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing on them. If they want to believe up is heaven, then that's cool for them. But,
neat, I guess.
Yeah, neat. But I've been there.
Yeah. Why up there?
Yeah. But dude, it's so beautiful here. And now, I kind of like that I got to show you this other part of it too. But we probably could have stayed up there and been fine. Yeah.
Oh, this is cool, dude.
Well, dude, Frank. It's a pleasure meeting you, man.
Dude,
and,
it's been, yeah.
Dude.
Just always make friends in the craziest places. That's fun.
I think it's important we just keep doing it. Just keep connecting.
Hell yeah.
And sharing life together.
I definitely
and like me, I'm sharing this little piece of Colorado Springs that I've been introduced to. I want to share with as many people as possible, because if you can find a little spot like this in your town, in your city, how awesome is this? Just to be able to leave your house and be in the wilderness like that, and you're not living way out in the country.
No, I mean that's actually, I live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool thing about that is like I'm in the city, like I've got all the city stuff, but pretty quickly I could be in, say, Jefferson Memorial Forest, which is a pretty cool forest preserve, state park. And then it's not as close, but you know, I've got Red River Gorge like an hour away, which is just this awesome natural gorge. So it's just, I really enjoy that. I grew up, you know, growing up in Chicago, it was like you have to drive a ways to get to anything natural.
Cool, man. Well, we're gonna end it. I don't know what that's saying on there, but thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to me ramble.